Hello, hello. I have got a very exciting lesson for us all for science today. So hopefully you can see on the screen that it says experiment. So we're going to have a little recap on all our learning, and then I'm going to set you a bit of a science investigation at home. So let's get started so we can get on to the fun stuff. So we have been exploring and learning about different types of plants. So just spend a couple of minutes now thinking or chatting to your family members about what you have learned about plants. So maybe the names of them or possibly the different parts. So just have a little pause now. Fabulous. So some of the things you might have said is that you have learned the different parts of a plant. So you might be able to recall that plants have stems and leaves and flowers, petals, they have roots, some have seeds, some have bulbs, some plants even have fruits. Some plants are also trees, so they have trunks and branches. And we've also started looking at the different types of plants as well. So you should have been exploring, or you should be able to remember daffodils, cherry trees, strawberry plants, fir trees, even an oak tree. Okay, hopefully some of those things are what you have been discussing at home. So for today's experiment, we're going to focus on roots. Okay, so the roots of a plant. And here, look, on the screen are the different roots on my two different pictures of plants that I've got up. And roots have a very, very important job, okay? They hold the plant into the ground, so they're a bit like an anchor, okay? They hold the plant into the ground to stop it from falling over. But also another job that they do, which is very, very important, is that they suck up all of the water and all of the nutrients from the soil, okay? And this helps the plant grow nice and strong and healthy. So the roots basically sucking up all the food that the plants need. And if the roots didn't do that, then unfortunately the plants would not survive. So the roots are very important. They're sort of like the mouths of the plant. They're sucking all the goodness up. So we're going to have a little experiment today that tests the structure of the plant. Okay, now some of you might not have a plant at home. You might not be able to go nip to the shops and get some flowers, but do not panic. I've got different suggestions for you of things you can find around the house. Okay, so we are going to test the structure of a plant, but don't worry because I've got different things that you should have at home that you can test instead. All right, so we are going to test what happens to the petals of a flower if we change the colour of the water. So you can see here that I have got some lovely white flowers and I've popped them in some different food colourings. But we're going to have a go at finding out and testing what happens to those petals and thinking about why. Okay, so first of all, we're going to have a little think about things that we could change in this experiment. So we could change the size of the plant pot. Okay, so we could put all the different flowers, all the different plant parts in different sized plant pots, potentially. We could change the soil. Okay, so if we wanted to do this experiment and our plant was in a soil, we could change the soil. Change the amount of food, the amount of liquid that we give the plant. So some plants we could give small amounts and other plants we could give large amounts of liquids to. So these are things that we could change and vary. We could change the water and we could also change the colour of the water. Okay, so we could also change the colour of the water, and this is the one that we are going to have an explore with today. So the thing that we are changing is the colour of the water. I wonder if you can start thinking what might happen to our plants. So things that we could measure, that's things that we need to look for in this experiment. So we could look to find out, to see whether the plant grows. That's one thing we might want to observe and change, okay? Check whether the changes are that the plant grows. Maybe it grows taller, maybe an extra flower blooms, potentially. We might want to check or observe how much water is sucked up by the plant. Okay, so we're testing the structure of the plants. We might want to look at how much water is sucked up, possibly. We might want to check the colour of the petals. So because we've said that the water is being sucked up the plant, will the colour of the petals change? Now, I'm going to focus on this one here. So this is what I'm going to observe. Okay, so I'm going to look to see if the colour of the petals change. That's the one that I'm going to observe. But you might want to observe how much water sucks up or whether the plant grows. It's up to you, okay, what you're testing for. But I'm going to check what happens to the colour of the petals or the colour of my item that I'm going to stick in, which I'll show you about in a second. So therefore, I'm going to steal those phrases back from here. So watch this. So I'm going to steal the colour of the water and pop it here. And I'm going to steal that and pop that in my experiment. So I will change. So I'm going to now look at what my experiment entails. So I'm going to change the colour of the water. So some of the plants one of the plants I'm going to put in yellow, another one I'm going to put in green, another one in blue, and another one in red. And then I'm going to measure. That means I'm going to observe. I'm looking to see whether the colour of the petals is going to change or whether they're all going to stay the same. I think I've got a prediction already as to what I think might happen. Maybe you've started thinking too. And all the other things I'm going to keep the same. So all those things that I said I could change here in terms of the colour of the water, I'm actually going to keep the same. So for example, if you get my typing box out to type these in, I'm going to make sure they are in the same sized container. Okay, so I'm going to make sure they're in the same size container. So I might put them all in the same sort of mug or the same sort of jar or the same sort of bowl. Okay, but they're all going in the same container. I'm also going to make sure they're going to have the same amount of water in each. Okay, so if I put this much water in one container, I'm going to put that in every single container because I want the test to be fair. So we're making sure that these things are kept the same so that it's a fair test. I'm also going to stick with the same plant. So I'm going to use the same plant, okay, or material, which I will explore in a second. It's the same plant or material. So if I use a white flower in the first one, I'm going to continue to use that in all of them. If I use celery in the first one, I'm going to use that in all of them. Is there anything else I need to keep the same? I know they all need to be put in the same place. Okay, because light, the amount of light that an object can get will have an effect on the experiment. So I don't want to put them in a really bright space. I don't want to put one near the really hot radiator because it will make the water evaporate. So we're going to put them all on the same side. So you need to think in your house, if you've got a space you could put 3 or 4 containers, you might have the side in your kitchen, or you might have a windowsill, or maybe the table in your dining room that you can use. So have a little think where you're going to put them. So from all these then, I'm going to say these are my questions. These are my things that I'm going to look for today. So when I change the colour of the water, what will happen to the colour of the petals? Okay, so that is my question that I am asking today. So here I've got my asking question, and it says, when I change the colour of the water, what will happen to the colour of the petals? Yours might be slightly different, and it might be, when I change the colour of the water, what will happen to I can't remember what the other ones were on our, there we go, what will happen to how much water is sucked up? Okay. So have a little think about what you want to explore, but that's going to be my one. So when I change the colour of the water, what will happen to the colour of the petals? And this is my investigation sheet. Now, you don't have to have a go at writing this. I want you to have a little go at exploring and talking through it. But what I do want you to do is at least talk through these things that are on the screen, okay? Just like I'm going to do now, make sure you're talking through this experiment. So remember, my question was, when I change the colour of the water, that a little bit smaller, what will happen to the colour of the petals? Okay, so that is my question for the day. So what are we trying to find out? So I want to try and find out then if the petals will change colour. The petals will change colour in the cups. What am I going to keep the same? Well, let me just check. I went back, didn't I? I said the container, the place, the amount of water and material. I'm going to say the container, place, the amount of water and the material. And then here, we've got some space to do our design. Right, are you ready for my fabulous drawing? So like I said, you don't have to print this off, just have a little discussion about what's going to be in each of these boxes when you're doing your experiment. You might want to have a little go at doing your design here, what I'm going to do, okay? If you want something written to do. So my design then is going to be that I'm going to have 3 different containers, but remember they all need to be the same. Okay, so I've got 3 different containers here. And they're going to have 3 different types of liquid in. So at home, I'm going to use green food dye, because I've got green. I'm also going to use blue. And I'm going to use red. So I've got lots of red because I like making red cakes at home. And then I'm going to draw my lovely flowers. So my flower up here, there's my leaf. Flower, because I'm going to put this, remember, in the liquid. And I'm using the same flower. So I'm just going to draw my flower, but I'm going to use a white flower. Okay. Your drawings will probably be a lot more detailed than mine because I find this quite tricky to do on a computer. And then you can have a go at labelling up your diagram. So for example, here I'm going to label up the container. There we go. So I'm going to say container. I'm going to say food dye, flour. Need that other one there, do I? Getting over excited about labelling my things up. And there is my design, my diagram. And then I need to have a think about what my prediction is. So my prediction is, well, I think that the petals will change colour to the colour of the water that they are in. So for example, if I have a green food dye in water situation here, and I put the flower in it, I think this flower is going to turn green. Here, the one that's in the food dye that's blue, I think that flower will turn blue. And here, where the flower is in the red food dye, I think the flower will turn red. So they are my predictions. So I'm going to go through this again. So you just got a little bit of a discussion that you can have at home. Okay, remember, if you want to change your design, that's okay, but this is the experiment I'm going to do. So when I change the colour of the water, what will happen to the colour of the petals? So that's my question that I'm going to explore. So I want to find out if the petals will change colour when they're in their cups. And things that I'm going to keep the same, I'm keeping the container, the place where I'm putting them, the position that I'm putting them, the amount of water and the materials. And I've got my design there. And then my prediction is that the petals will change colour to the colour of the water that they are in. I wonder if my prediction will be right. Don't forget, you need to write your prediction down so that then you can come back and see whether it's correct or not. So these are the things you're going to need for your experiment. And I've tried to make it as easily accessible as you should have the majority of these things at home. So you'll need something to act as the flower with the roots, so the job that they're sucking the water up. So if you've got some flowers that are on their way out, so they're nearly dying at home, See if you can use some of those. You might find some weeds in your garden that you could also use, such as dandelions. Just pick them out of your garden or on your daily walk, see if you can take those. If you don't have any flowers, do not worry. You can use celery, okay? So celery is this vegetable here. If you have celery, this is a really good vegetable to do this with. But if you don't have either of those things, don't worry, you can do this with a piece of tissue, okay? So tissue or toilet roll. So you should have all that at home. If you do it with tissue, you get an instant response straight away, so you can see what happens with the experiment, okay? If you want something to have a look at over the weekend or overnight, then have a go at using celery or a flower instead. So other things that you will need for this experiment are food dye, okay? So food dye is coloured dye that we put in our food to make it change colour. If you don't have any food dye, if you've got any paint at home, this will work just as well, okay? So make sure you're putting lots of that in, and then you'll need some water and some jugs or some cups or some form of container just to put your 4 things in. So to set this up at home, this is what you need to be doing. So number 1, okay? Number 1, you need to get all your items out. And first of all, you need to get your object that you've chosen. So if you've chosen a flower, so you need to get that. If you've chosen celery, you need to get that. And if you've chosen a piece of paper, you need to get that. So I would choose 3 or 4 of the same item. So 3 flowers, 3 bits of celery, or 3 tissues. Then once you've got that, you need to get your food dye or your watered down paint, okay? And then you need to get your cups and put a little bit of food dye in each of the cups. So 1 cup will be green, 1 will be red, and 1 will be blue. Or 1 will be yellow, 1 will be red, 1 will be green, whatever colours you've got at home. Okay, once you've done that, then you need to do number 4, which is where you put your flowers or your celery or your tissues in the water to see what happens. Okay, so pop them in at the end and just pop them on the side in your house and leave them. We're going to leave them till Monday. So we're going to leave them until Monday, and that's when we're going to check on them to make sure they've had time to absorb all these colours. So hopefully you'll notice lots of changes. And today, this is the work that I want you to take a photo and send into school so that we can see that you have done it, okay? I don't mind if you don't do the written part of it. As long as you've talked through that experiment, that's fabulous. But what I do want to see is a photo of this science experiment being done at your home, okay? So make sure you're sending that across so that we can check them and see how you are doing. And if you want any help with anything, just send me an email and I will get back to you. Hopefully you'll really enjoy doing this little science experiment, which follows on nicely from our unit of plants that we've been exploring. I can't wait to see all the fabulous things that you are doing at home and how creative you're getting, but be careful not to get the food dye or the paints anywhere, okay? So don't forget to send me a picture or a video of this across. Good luck and enjoy. Bye everyone.